Mercury. The Roman god Mercury, herald, and ambassador of his father, Jupiter, mid-12th, Mercury, from Latin Mercurius Mercury, originally a god of tradesmen and thieves, from mercs merchandise, see market, or perhaps Klein, Tucker from Etruscan and influenced by mercs. Devon thinks it possible the whole stem * merc was borrowed and the god name with it. Mercury later was identified with Greek Hermes and still later with Germanic Woden. From his role as a messenger and conveyor of information, since mid-17th, Mercury has been a common name for a newspaper. The planet closest to the Sun was so called in classical Latin, c. 1300 in English. A hypothetical inhabitant of the planet was a Mercurian, 1855, or a Mercurian, 1755. For the metallic element, see Mercury. In U.S. numismatics, the Mercury head dime, so called by 1941, was in circulation from 1916. Properly it is the female head of Liberty, in her characteristic cap, here winged to symbolize freedom of thought. But the resemblance to Mercury was noted in coin circles at once, and the coin design sometimes was popularly mistaken as the head of Mercury, Roman god of making money and thieving, in his winged hat. It was so called in 1933 in newspaper articles calling attention to the fasces on the reverse. The coin is more correctly the winged Liberty head dime, simple Liberty head dime being a designation of the previous design. The design was replaced in 1946, which made it necessary for it to have an agreed-upon specifying name. There's the 4-year-old who counted out 20 cents with the remark, a boy dime and a girl dime. Translated, this means a Roosevelt dime and one classified by coin books as the New Mercury head dime. Dothan Eagle, June 25, 1951. Related entries and more. Mercuric, adjective. 1828, in chemistry, relating to or containing mercury, from mercury plus Ic. Specifically applied to compounds in which each atom of mercury is regarded as bivalent. Mercurous, 1840, is applied to those in which two atoms of mercury are regarded as forming a bivalent radical. Related entries and more. Mercurial, adjective. Late 14th, pertaining to or under the influence of the planet Mercury, from Latin mercurialis, from Mercurius, see Mercury. Meaning, pertaining to the god Mercury, having the form or qualities attributed to Mercury, in reference to his role as god of trade or as herald and guide, is from 1590s. Meaning, light-hearted, sprightly, volatile, changeable, quick, 1640s, is from the qualities supposed to characterize those born under the planet Mercury. They also are the qualities of the god Mercury, probably also partly by association with the qualities of quicksilver. A variant in this sense was Micaeus, 1590s. Related, mercurially, mercuriality. Related entries and more. Mercurial, adjective. Late 14c, pertaining to or under the influence of the planet Mercury, from Latin mercurialis, from mercurius, see Mercury. Meaning, pertaining to the god Mercury, having the form or qualities attributed to Mercury, in reference to his role as god of trade or as herald and guide, is from 1590s. Meaning, light-hearted, sprightly, volatile, changeable, quick, 1640s, is from the qualities supposed to characterize those born under the planet Mercury. They also are the qualities of the god Mercury, probably also partly by association with the qualities of quicksilver. A variant in this sense was Micaeus, 1590s. Related, mercurially, mercuriality. Related entries and more. Intramercurial, adjective, being within the orbit of the planet Mercury, 1859, especially in reference to a supposed planet orbiting there, sought in vain in the eclipse of 1860, from intra, within, inside, plus Mercury, Latin Mercurius, plus L, 1. The idea originated in France in the 1840s with Urbain Le Verrier, who later became director of the Paris Observatory. There was some excitement about it in 1859 when a French doctor named Lescarbalt claimed to have tracked it crossing the sun's disk and convinced Le Verrier. It was sought in vain in the solar eclipses of 1860, 68, and 69. See Vulcan. Related entries and more. Y Gen. 51. 24. 57. 12. May 29, 1976. 39. 39. 39. 39. Ox. 39. 12. 15. 6. Letter A. 81. 27. 108. 45. R. 18. 9. 9. 9. Aleph. 42. 24. 93. 21. RA. 19. 10. 35. 17. Alpha. 38. 20. 97. 25. Re. 23. 14. 31. 13. I am. 23. 14. 58. 22. Omega. 41. 23. 94. 22. O. 15. 6. 12. 3. Mega. 26. 17. 82. 19. FBI. 17. 17. 64. 19. Guy. 53. 17. 28. 10. Lad. 17. 8. 64. 19. Aladdin Sanhi. 80. 35. 190. On June 5, 1968, presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy was mortally wounded shortly after midnight at the Ambassador Hotel in Los Angeles. Earlier that evening, the 42-year-old junior senator from New York was declared the winner in the South Dakota and California Democratic presidential primaries. Assassination of Robert F. Kennedy, Wikipedia. Martin Luther King Jr., an African-American clergyman and civil rights leader, was fatally shot at the Lorraine Motel in Memphis, Tennessee, on April 4, 1968, at 6:01 p.m. CST. He was rushed to St. Joseph's Hospital, where he died at 7:05 p.m. Assassination of Martin Luther King Jr., Wikipedia. In 1968, AT&T announced that it would establish the digits 9-1-1, 911, as the emergency code throughout the United States. The code 9-1-1 was chosen because it best fit the needs of all parties involved. First, and most important, it met public requirements because it is brief, easily remembered, and can be dialed quickly. 9-1-1 Origin and History, National Emergency Number Association. 2001 A Space Odyssey release date. April 3, 1968, United States. Twin Towers. Construction work began on the North Tower in August 1968, and construction on the South Tower was underway by January 1969-78. Coronavirus, N. Type of RNA virus affecting birds and mammals, in humans as a respiratory tract infection, by 1968, is so called for the spikes that protrude from its membranes and resemble the corona of the sun. See corona. COVID as a contraction of coronavirus disease seems to have been coined for the outbreak that began in China in 2019, COVID-19.
Understanding words is what you really need to start doing. You need to start doing your homework and understanding words. If you put an S in front of words, it becomes swords. And that's what words are. They're cutting. They can cause you great trouble. Humans are word control creatures. So we need to establish what words mean. Again, when we talk about law, there's a Roman maximum in law that says, "For he that would be deceived, let him." Simply meaning, if you are so ignorant as to be deceived, then that's your business, that's your problem. So you need to do your homework and find out what the words mean, especially in relation to law and government. Because there is a world of occultism that is operating today throughout the world, in which you use certain words, and when those words are used in a court, they don't mean the same thing at all. Understanding law and the words of law, there are two things that this planet has: water and earth, water and land. Consequently, there are two kinds of law: the law of the land and the law of water. You've heard the term law of the land, but in point of fact, that's precisely what this word means, law of the land, because it is the people who live on land. And that is opposed to something else called the law of the high seas, or the law of water. You need to understand the difference. The law of the land is the law of the culture that lives on the land. And so consequently, the law of the land is different in every country. You can do things in America you can't do in Russia. You can do things in Africa you can't do in England. So the law of the land is the law of the culture that lives on that particular land. However, there is a higher law that dominates the entire world. It's called the law of the water, or the law of the high seas. The law of water is referred to as the law of money. It doesn't matter what color you are, where you're from, or where you live. Money is money. And anytime you're doing banking or using money, you are now under the law of water, maritime admiralty. If you go back in history, in ancient history, where all of this began, back in the land of Canaan, you probably have heard in the Bible, the land of Canaan. The Canaanites were Phoenician bloodline, and in the ancient Phoenician language, Cana meant merchant, banker. The very word merchant comes from mer, M-E-R, for the sea, for water. As in mermaid, we have merchant. Merchant, bankers. Let me give an example of the difference between the law of water and the law of the land. The law of water, as I said, is a law of banking, money, as opposed to the law of the custom of the people or the law of the land. The Statue of Liberty must be put in water. It could not be put on American land as such. It had to be put in the harbor, because it's not the Statue of Freedom. It's a Statue of Liberty. Liberty is what a sailor gets when he pulls into port on a ship. He gets liberty. He's not free. So America is not the land of the free and the home of the brave. We're not free or brave, period. We're not free. This is not a free country. Now let me give you an example of how this law of the water works. Why is it that you have to go to court? People are always concerned about going to court. You go to court because you play basketball and tennis on a court. How do you play tennis on a court? You play with a racket. Why? So that's what it is. It's a racket. And make no mistake, they do not pick words by chance. These words are very serious. They do not use words in terms with no avail. These words are very important. When you go into a court, what's the idea of going to court? It's a game, like basketball. The whole idea in a court is to put the ball back in the other guy's court. One team gets up and they throw the ball over to that team of lawyers. That team gets up and throws the ball back into their court. And consequently, it's a ball game. And the judge is wearing a black robe, so he is the referee. The judge is the referee. He doesn't care which side wins or loses because he's going to get paid anyway. So he couldn't care less. He's merely there as a referee, and that's why he wears a black robe. And that's another interesting subject we can get into later. But the judge is a referee between two teams. The judge, that we are told, rules from the bench. The word bench in Latin is a bank. Therefore, the judge rules for the bank. Where do you find banks? You find banks on both sides of a river. They're called river banks. And what does a river bank do? It directs the flow of the current sea. The juice. Consequently, your money is currency because it's the flow, the cash flow. And give you an example of how this works. When a ship pulls into a harbor, all ships are referred to as female. Airships, rocket ships, sailing ships are always female. Why? There's a very good reason. Maritime Admiralty banking law says all ships are female because they're carrying items. They're carrying items for money, and so consequently they are under Maritime Admiralty law. Admiralty is where we get the word admiral of the Navy. Let me give you an example of how this works. When a ship pulls into harbor, it parks at the dock, and it ties off at the dock. The captain has to provide for the port authorities a certificate of manifest, because yesterday the ship was not here, but this morning the ship pulled in, so it has manifested. So consequently, all the products, the $800 million worth of TVs or Toyotas, have manifested. So each one of those items coming off of that ship has come off of water. And they has come in a ship. And consequently, on a ship, all ships have a captain. The word captain comes from a Latin word capital, money. So the captain represents the money that's on board the ship. And as I said, the captain has to present to the port authorities a certificate of manifest for each and every item. How much does it weigh? What color is it? How many doors does it have? Etc. And consequently, the captain presents a certificate of manifest. The ship is sitting in its berth. And wherever a ship sits when it docks is called its berth. She sits in her berth, berthing a ship. Consequently, all the items, as I said, coming off that ship represent money. They came in on water. They are maritime admiralty products. And this is true all over the world. Now, when you were born, your mother's water broke. And when your mother's water broke, you came out. And this is why you have to have a birth certificate, because you are a maritime admiralty product under international law. You are considered, your body is considered a maritime admiralty product. Your mother delivered you. This is why if you go to Sears and buy a refrigerator, they will ship it to you. They will deliver it. That's why you were in your delivery room. Your mother was delivering a product. Maritime admiralty. You came down your mother's birth canal. And once you, and as you're taking one of the televisions or the cars off the ship and it falls down and breaks, that's all right. Sometimes they're stillborn, so consequently you lost money on that one. Therefore, you have to have a death certificate, and it's always signed by the doc. The doc has to sign your birth certificate and your death certificate. All of these words and terms are maritime admiralty banking words. And therefore, if you understand lawyers and judges and courts and government are all under international maritime admiralty law. All religions, all churches in the world operate under maritime law. This is why all churches are divided into denominations, like 20s and 50s and 100s. Serious. This is why they're called denominations, because all churches are nothing more than the product of maritime admiralty banking. It's an extraordinary story of occult treason, high treason and crimes against the state. Make no mistake about it, there has never been a country on the face of the earth as far back into history as you can go. There has never existed